Hi, I'm Gary Striegler, a home builder and trim carpenter. I first became aware of composition ornament when I read a magazine article probably 12, 14 years ago. And through the years, I've used composition ornament on a lot of different projects with great results. So I wanted to do this video to kind of share with other people how they can be using this product too. It's really simple. All I've done is taken a wooden frame and stapled the t-shirt over it. Just some, that type of cloth. You could use cheesecloth also. And then I'm going to be heating some water in a pan. Now, this is a roasting pan, and this metal plate on top, I guess, would maybe be designed to keep the meat out of the drippings that settle in the bottom of the pan when you're cooking. And I'm just using a 2-burner electric hot plate to do that. And the principle is composition ornament, when it gets heated up, becomes flexible, which is really good because you can form it around curves and things. And you can also just kind of bring it together. There's been times we've trimmed little pieces off of one piece of composition ornament and combined it with another. So you're really just limited to your imagination. And a lot of times I found it is kind of nice to keep a knife around because you may want to kind of underbevel some of the pieces as you're putting them together, which is basically the same thing you do if you're doing trim work. Composition ornament contains a glue that's activated by water, and the steam that comes when I heat this water will also activate it. So what I would want to do if I was getting ready to use some composition ornaments, I'm going to heat the water, and I would just put this frame over it and maybe pour just a little bit of water on here to get the whole process started. I like to have a decent amount of steam coming out. Now, some people don't like that much steam, but I like to have it steaming pretty good when I'm doing this type of work. And depending on the thickness of the piece of composition ornament that I'm going to be using, will kind of give me the time I need to let it sit here. You don't want it to get so hot that it distorts when you pick it up, but you want it to be kind of sticky on the back before you try and use it. And today what I'm going to be doing is taking some pieces of composition ornament and applying it to wood trim. These are more lineal pieces. We also do a lot of work with kind of medallion type pieces, and one of the great things about composition ornament is it's a good way to get a high level of definition at a very reasonable price because it's literally stamped into a form, and you also get the same product each time. It's been around for a long time. It used to be used on mirror frames almost exclusively, but we use a lot more in trim and mantles, all kinds of different places. So let's take a look at how this process is going to work. Just going to put a little bit of water on here to kind of get the process going. Working around a little bit. Now the first piece I'm going to use is this leafy lineal piece. It's pretty thick as you can see, and just look at the relief that I get here. This is a very economical way to create detailing on cabinets and on moldings. So I'm just going to sit this piece here, and I'll actually go ahead and put another piece on here too. I've got a little more water than I want, so I think I'm going to try and go ahead and get rid of a little excess water. I just want this damp. And as you can see, the steam's starting to rise. Now this product, when you first get it, it's incredibly pliable. And you can store it in a deep freeze if you're not ready to use it immediately. But you can probably keep it outside, depending on the conditions, for 2 or 3 weeks and still be able to work it pretty easily. Now I've got some pieces around my shop that we didn't use that have been sitting there for several years. I'm going to tell you, they get as hard as a rock. Now this product will also stain pretty well. You have to use kind of a heavy-bodied stain, sort of the same process you might use if you're staining like a fiberglass door. Now while I'm working on this, what I try to do is kind of feel the top of it and see whether the top of it's starting to get warm or not. If these were thin pieces, it might not only take, just a few seconds for it to be ready to go. Now my water may not be boiling quite as much as I want, but this piece is almost ready. This piece of wood is going to create a freeze around the front of my cabinet, and I'm going to just use these leafy pieces across the front of it. It's just a board that I put a routed edge on the bottom of. Okay. One of the things I want to make sure of is that there's not a bunch of dust on the surface, because that will, just like any glue, you know, the surface needs to be clean before you apply your product to it. Okay, I'm going to take this piece and I'm just going to line it up with the top edge of my board. Let it sit there. I'm going to go ahead and put another piece on so it can be working. And this one feels pretty good. It's just warm to the touch. And as you can see, it's kind of changed color on the back. Sometimes we say it's gotten kind of snotty. And it's just about the right temperature where I can stretch the pieces a little bit and just bring them together. They're sticking really well. I'll give this just a couple more seconds. And like a lot of things, it's just kind of experience. Once you've worked with a little bit, you start to learn exactly kind of the temperature that you want and the amount of flexibility that you want. Of course, it also depends on where you're putting it. I have installed this in place before, sometimes even overhead, and you might have to hold it there a little bit to kind of let it cool down and let the glue grab. I'll bring that piece in. Now the profile on this is almost ½ an inch thick, and so that gives me a really great level of detail. You know, you'll see some moldings that have been embossed, which just means that there's been a pattern pushed into the wood, and that's pretty good, and it's a very economical way to do it. Then of course there's carved things, which are quite expensive, and this is just kind of somewhere in between those two. One of the great things about it is with companies that have been in business a long time, like Bomar Designs, they just have so many options for the patterns that you can use. It's almost anything that you would need, any size, they're going to have a piece that will fit that. All right, I'm going to let this cool for just a second. Now I'm going to hold it up so you can see it's already sticking, and I can cut this with just a regular saw. So when it cools a little bit, it's going to be ready for me to cut and put on my cabinet. Now this last piece is a big acanthus piece. I'm actually going to have to put it kind of on an angle here, and it's pretty thick, and I'm going to be putting it on a piece of crown that's got a pretty deep cut to it, so I'm really going to heat it up. And this is actually the same piece that you're going to see later in the video that we apply in place on one of our projects. And you can certainly do that. The biggest thing is you just want to make sure that the surface, if it's been painted already, has been roughed up a little bit, just like about anything else you do, to where this product's going to have a chance to adhere. If it's a super slick surface, the glue won't have a chance to adhere. And again, I'm going to make sure that the dust is all off this piece, because you know, for demonstration purposes, it's just a scrap of trim that I had around the shop. Now if I'm not getting enough moisture from the steam, you can even take like a little spritzer bottle and spray the back of the trim a little bit before you put it on top of there. It's getting pretty warm, but I want it to be a little bit more flexible because I've really got to work it into that trim. Right now I'm just starting to feel the top surface of this change temperatures. Still not quite ready. One of the things that I've done in the past too, especially if you've got somebody helping you, is you can time it. You know, you can just say, I'm going to put it on there for 30 seconds or 45 seconds. Okay, we're getting pretty close. Matter of fact, I think this is ready. Yeah, if I'd waited any longer, I might have had some problems. Push that down in there. It's interesting, the part of the trim, or the part of this composition ornament that was in the kind of in the middle where it got the most heat, it's the easiest part to work, and the parts that were out on the end where they weren't quite getting as much heat are a little bit harder to work. And if I'd gotten this any warmer, I probably would need to support it with like a putty knife or something when I pulled it off. I'm trying to adjust it to where the long points of the pattern all come to the same point on my molding. Okay, so hopefully you can see that that's really stuck to a pretty good curve there, and I can maybe keep pressing it down a little bit more. But again, that's one of the great things about composition ornament is it gets flexible as you heat it. And this piece had been sitting around for quite a while. If it was really fresh, it'd be a little bit easier to work. So that'd probably be a good idea if you're going to work a piece like this on something we had that much curve, but try to use it pretty quick after you get it. Well, as you can see, it's really pretty easy to work with composition ornament. Basically, you're just going to heat the product up and put it in place, and it's just a matter of getting a little bit of experience, but it's really easy to work with, and you can get some great results without spending a lot of money, just a little bit of your time. Now, as the video progresses, we're just going to take a look at some examples of places that I like to use composition ornament on the houses that we build. I built my business almost entirely on referrals. Over the years, my goal has always been just to give my clients the very nicest finished product for the most reasonable price. And that's one of the reasons I like to work with composition ornament. It's easy to work with, it's very economically priced, there's lots of design options, and when you're done, the finished product really stands out like this detail on this mantle. Now, if you'd like to see some other pictures of projects we've completed with composition ornament, check out our website, Craftsman Builders NWA. And if you'd like to learn more about composition ornament, go to Bomar Designs website, which is simply bomardesigns.com.